Welcome to the Brothers War rules video. My name is Nelson.
And I'm Serge. Let's go over the new and returning mechanics. A prototype card is an artifact card that also has a secondary set of mana cost, power, and toughness characteristics inset in the text box. It can be cast using either its normal characteristics, or it can be cast as a smaller prototype version that uses the secondary characteristics instead. A prototype card could be colorless or have a color identity on the stack or battlefield. Both are possible, depending on which mode was cast. However, in all other zones, it will be colorless. So for example, hand, graveyard, library, etc. When you cast a card as its prototype version, that spell has all of the characteristics from the secondary text box rather than the normal values.
So what happens if I want to cast a prototyped card from another zone?
The prototype ability functions in any zone that the spell could be cast from. So for example, if you could cast an artifact from a graveyard, you could choose the base cost or the prototype cost.
What happens if I copy a prototyped permanent?
Any copies will have the same characteristics as the thing you're copying.
What happens if I blink or flicker a prototype?
Any card with prototype that enters the battlefield without being cast will enter as its larger form.
Meld is back! In case you missed it all the way back in Eldritch Moon, Meld is a mechanic that allows you to turn two specific cards into one mega monstrosity. In Brothers War, we get 3 new melded pairs, doubling the previous number. Remember, cards with meld can only meld with their pair. No mixing and matching. Here's how it works. One card in each pair has an ability that instructs you to exile the 2 cards and meld them. The 2 cards are exiled and melded. They each leave the battlefield, then return together as one new object with no relation to either of the permanents they once were. Counters, auras, equipment, and any other effects on these 2 cards won't affect the melded permanent. While a meld card is in any zone other than the battlefield, it only has the characteristics of its front face. While a melded permanent is on the battlefield, it only has the characteristics of its combined back face. Note that the permanent represented by the combined back faces has a color indicator. Its mana value is the sum of the mana values of its front faces.
I have questions.
Hit me.
What is the mana value of a cloned melded permanent?
That's a little trickier. Since a cloned permanent doesn't have a front face, it'll have a mana value of 0.
What happens if I blink or flicker a melded permanent?
Great question. Short answer, they separate. Long answer, in exile, only consider the front face of both permanents. So the melded permanent will go to exile, both sides will return to their original front face, then they'll both return to the battlefield unmelded.
Aggro players rejoice! Unearth is back. The ultimate beep beep mechanic. Didn't get enough value from your aggressive cards? Well, good news. With Unearth, they come back swinging one last time. Unearth means cost. Return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. Unearth only as a sorcery. Activating an Unearth ability isn't the same as casting that card. The Unearth ability is put on the stack, but the card is not. This means Unearth can't be countered, but can be stifled, and the card can be removed from a graveyard in response to the activation. This is a very cool interaction that I didn't know until I was actually researching for the script. If an unearthed permanent would leave the battlefield for any reason, it's exiled instead. Unless you're actively trying to exile it, in which case you succeed. Then, if that spell or ability later wants you to return the card to the battlefield, like a blink or flicker card, the new permanent has no relation to its previous existence. This means that blink or flicker works with Unearth, and I had no idea.
Fresh off the sheets of Dominaria United, stun counters are back. If a permanent has more than one stun counter on it, only one will be removed each time it would become untapped. Abilities that trigger when a permanent becomes untapped won't trigger if a stun counter is removed instead. Stun counters are not keyword counters, and they don't cause the permanents they're on to gain any abilities. They won't be affected by effects that cause permanents to lose abilities.
Our final returning mechanic is Power Stone tokens. Technically released in Dominaria United, they were only on one card, so we figured it'd be a good idea to cover them again. Power Stones are a new kind of predefined token. each one has the artifact subtype Power Stone and the ability Tap, Add Colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Pay attention to the double negative. You can use this mana on a lot of things. For example, paying cost to activate abilities of both artifact and non-artifact permanents, paying for ward costs, and so on. You can even use it to pay the two. That's it for the rules.
Thanks for watching.